One of my favorite moments in working with clients was when someone approached me once and they said that what they needed me to assist them with was to heal the inner child. And very seriously and very sincerely, I asked them, what does that look like? What does a healed inner child look like? And they couldn't answer me. And most people can't, because I fundamentally disagree with the concept of an inner child. Because you see, it's that kind of separation we create. We create subcomponents. We create like pieces of ourselves within ourselves, and we try to deal with those individually. And that's how we generally approach life as well. We look at our professional space versus our personal space versus our social space, and versus our personal space, like our intimate internal space. And we treat them all separately. And then it creates stress because you have to remember to adapt between each one, because your professional space requires a certain decorum. Your personal relationships might require a different kind of interaction or tone, and so on. And the problem with that is that we lose sight of ourselves, because then we become defined by those different roles that we play. And that's the problem with this whole inner child approach, or the mother wound approach, or the father wound approach, and daddy issues and all of those things, is that you lose sight of who you are and you focus on what it is that happened to you, what it is that's happening to you, what it is that others are seeing in you. And that's a problem, because that causes you to focus on how you should be versus how you are and why you are the way you are. And that's why whenever I ask anyone to tell me what do they think of themselves, inevitably they get it wrong, because most people are focused on what others think of them. They focused on how they want to appear to others, how they want to be perceived, how they want to be respected. They don't focus on who they are. And when you don't focus on who you are and you don't understand who you are, automatically what happens is that you lose yourself to those expectations. And then when it starts feeling like stress and you can't find that peace and you can't find that tranquility or that contentment that you're looking for, you then look around you and you blame circumstances and you blame society and you blame the community and culture and religion and all sorts of external factors that you choosing to subscribe to. And that's what we lose sight of. We lose sight of the fact that there is a conscious will within us in this very moment that we can exercise, but we don't exercise it because we have outsourced that agency, that control, to all of these other factors. I'll give you a simple example. One concept that the vast majority of people subscribe to, if not everyone, because it's so pervasive, is this body-mind-soul balance that we look at, right? And you might be thinking, like, is he really going to take apart the body-mind-soul balance that everyone knows works so well? And yes, I am going to take it apart. And here's my reasoning why. Picture this in your mind, right? Imagine that your body, mind, and soul are three kind of heaps of things that you need to do for yourself to keep them in balance. So you've got this balance that you've got going, and you've got your body, your mind, and your soul that you now need to feed and need to nurture and need to sustain and maintain and all of those wonderful things. So when you want to do something for your body, you go and you have a gym routine, exercise, outdoor activities, whatever it is that you need to do, eat healthy and all of that. That's your body space. Your mind space, well, continuous learning and acquisition of knowledge and all of those sorts of things. So you keep your mind active and you keep your mind engaged and applying it to meaningful outcomes that you think are worth pursuing. And then when you look at your soul or your spirit, whatever you want to call it, you then look at your spirituality. You look at your meditation. For some people it's prayer. For some people it's devotion. It is walks in nature and all sorts of things that are introspective and spiritually grounding in that way, or at least that's how we experience it or how we interpret it. My question to you is this: who is maintaining that body, mind, and soul balance? Now, it sounds like an obvious thing, and you might think, like, what's the point? Here's the point. If you are doing that for your body and your mind and your soul, do you not recognize that you are all three in one at any given point in time? And when you create that separation, you don't get the benefit of the whole. You only try to obtain benefit from the individual parts. And that's the separation we create. And that separation creates tension, and the tension eventually leads to anxiety. And that's the source of anxiety, but we'll get back to the anxiety part in a bit. So if you don't realize that body, mind, and soul at every single moment is always in play, at that same moment, they're not separate, that's when you stand a better chance of connecting with yourself. You stand a better chance of realizing who you are, what drives you, and what it is that makes you feel the way you do about the things that you are either passionate about or the things that you are fearful about. So when we talk about that body, mind, and soul experience, let me give you another example. If you have been famished, right? You had a really tough day, it's sweltering heat, you had to work long hours, etc. You didn't get a chance to take a break to have something to eat or drink, and eventually you sit down and you've got your favorite snack, and you've got a glass of water that is just perfectly chilled, and in that moment you take a sip of that water and you take a bite into that snack. Is that a body, mind, or soul experience? Because it satiates all of it. It gives you peace, it gives you relief, it gives you comfort, it gives you a sense of gratitude. All of those things come together in one single moment. And that is a simple example of how it is that we don't have separation between body, mind, and soul. So when we come back to the inner child wound and the inner child healing and reparenting the inner child and all of those concepts, all we're doing is we are detaching ourselves from our present state, and we're reverting to what we think was our childlike state that we now need to heal. Which brings me to the next important question. What does healing look like? You see, what I'm getting at is that we buy into concepts after concepts after concepts, and no one stops to think, well, what is the outcome? What is the outcome supposed to look like? If I'm on a healing journey, what does being healed feel like? You don't know what you don't know. If you've never experienced it before, how are you going to be able to define it? That's like, there's that old adage or piece of wisdom that I came across once that says that if we had to contemplate what life was like on an alien planet, our entire contemplation of it, our entire imagination will still be limited to our senses, our grasp of reality. We won't be able to imagine something we don't know or haven't experienced before. So we can't suddenly come up with an idea of a different kind of dimension or a different kind of sense that that alien life would have, because even that would be derived from our knowledge of what is possible. So if you don't know what you don't know, how can you possibly determine what healed looks like? Is it the absence of stress? If that's the case, none of us are healed ever, because life is stressful in the way it plays out. Because stress is not necessarily a negative thing. Stress is simply our concern about being able to achieve something that is important to us, and we might have reason to doubt ourselves, or we might be afraid of things that are out of our control and all sorts of things. And that's basically how life works, right? You're never ever in control. So control is a myth. We'll deal with the control issues another day. But coming back to stress and how we experience that and how healing plays out. So whenever I ask someone, what does healing look like? They can't answer me about that as well. Another question that people generally can't answer very well is, what are you grateful for? Inevitably, everyone talks about everything that's around them. I'm grateful for my home, I'm grateful for my family, I'm grateful for my loved ones, I'm grateful for my job, for my comforts, for my luxuries, for my opportunities. And they try to be really sincerely deep about it. And they even look at, well, I'm grateful for my health because it allows me to do this and it allows me to do that. You know what it is that almost no one considers being grateful for? Is who they are. But how do you put something tangible to that? How do you relate to who you are within the context of gratitude, within the context of healing and all of those sorts of things? If I say I'm grateful for who I am, I have to consider what it is that others can get from me, even though I'm not necessarily putting in a concerted effort to offer it. For example, if I am having a bad day, but my child comes up to me and they can still get comfort from my presence, am I grateful for that? Am I grateful for the fact that my presence, my mere existence in that role, offers someone that kind of comfort? Here's why it's important. If I assume that I don't have that impact on the people around me, I then take that for granted and I might withhold it without meaning to, and that negatively impacts them. And when negatively impacts them, it creates a strain in my relationship with them. And if I'm not aware of why it is that they're suddenly pulling away from me, I'll assume that they feel differently about me. And I won't have any reason to take stock of my own contribution to why that happened. And that's where it comes back to self-awareness, self-esteem, is that you have to be aware of the impact that you have. Because if you're not aware of the impact that you have, you're going to impact others around you in ways that you don't intend to, in ways that you will discount when you see them reacting to your behavior or to your gestures or your input or your negligence. Because we always assume that no one cares. That's the self-serving, self-defeating, self-deprecating kind of mindset that the victim headspace causes. No one cares, no one appreciates, no one does this, no one does that, no one looks out for me, no one's got my back. Whether that is true or not, if you feel as if that is an injustice against you, you're in a victim headspace. Because you're focused on what you're entitled to, what you can expect, justifiably or not, doesn't matter, rather than focusing on understanding what it is about you that you need that they might not understand, or what is it about them that they are distracted by that causes them not to see the impact they have on you, because it's how it works. The impact that you have on others is directly proportional to the impact that they have on you. Maybe proportional is the wrong word to use, but what I'm saying is that the same way that we can identify what impact others have on us and we want to hold them accountable for it, at which point do we hold ourselves accountable for our awareness of the impact we have on others? It's this absence of awareness, of mindfulness, of consciousness in the present moment that causes problems. And self-esteem, self-worth is core to this, because if I have a low self-worth, if I have constant doubts about my value to others, if I constantly doubt my ability to be able to do things in a way that is going to be beneficial or helpful, or is going to earn respect, or is going to earn the kind of cooperation that I'm looking for, whatever it is, if that is what I'm constantly lacking in, believing that I either belong, that I've got my tribe, or that I'm capable of creating value, then when I'm required to do something, my focus is not going to be on what I'm doing. That's going to be part of my focus. The more concerning distraction that I'm going to be dealing with is, what if I mess this up? Why? Because if I mess it up, that has implications of a personal kind. It's not just the direct consequence of messing something up. It's about what will people think of me. How will I look? Will I be a failure? Will I be ridiculed or mocked or rejected, and all of those sorts of things? And that's where our self-esteem, if it's not in a healthy space, it creates a handicap for everything that we're doing. That's why so many people struggle with imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is because of exactly that. Now, if you don't understand why you feel that way about yourself, you won't realize that you're looking at yourself through the eyes of others. Now, when I talk about looking at yourself through the eyes of others, it's saying that when we self-analyze, when we consider who we are and what it is that we're capable of and how successful we are, or whether we're doing okay in life or not, if we don't realize that we are projecting the opinions of others on ourselves to evaluate that progress or that state, we'll constantly think that we have good reason to feel as if we're not successful, as if we haven't accomplished enough. Because when you look at yourself through someone else's eyes, it's usually someone that you wanted to please, someone you wanted to be enough for. It could have been a relationship, it could have been your relationship with your parents, it could have been any number of those things. Sometimes it's academics, because you aspired to be like someone that you respected in the academic space. And if you don't realize that that's the standard by which you're judging yourself, it won't turn into an aspirational goal that you internalize because you want to be that. And you want to be that because of the value that you think you can create and contribute if you were that. So back to answering a lot of questions that I've left unanswered up until now. And that is, what does healing look like? Right? Healing is about understanding why. Healing is not about tools and coping mechanisms and defense mechanisms and recovering from. Healing is simply about understanding why. Once you understand why, meaningfully, not just some whimsical kind of suggestion about that's why, have a meaningful understanding that actually answers the questions that are playing in the back of your mind, that causes the stress and the duress, that leaves the mental clutter, that causes you to lose sleep and all sorts of things. When you can connect those dots and understand why, automatically that issue becomes an issue that you've made peace with. But you can't make peace with something that you don't understand. The best you can do is surrender to the fact that you don't understand it, and you can make peace with the fact that you are surrendering for good reason. But it doesn't mean that the cause of that was understood, which means that in the back of your mind, way down deep in your subconscious, you have a fear that if you encounter something similar again, chances are you're not going to get it right. You're going to be affected by it. You're going to be negatively impacted. Or you won't be able to navigate it successfully. So that's what a trigger looks like. A trigger or an insecurity is about the not having the confidence to believe that you are capable of navigating a certain setting or a certain problem. And if you find yourself not doing it well enough or failing at it in some way, that you will be okay about that because you know that you are teachable, you're trainable, so you'll be able to learn from your mistake and get it right. It doesn't end up defining how you feel about yourself, because if someone else laughs at your mistake, you can either feel ridiculed and humiliated, or you can recognize their immaturity and their insensitivity, or maybe they're just taking a dig at you because they have that kind of rapport with you, or that's just how they like to engage socially. But either way, someone else's attitude and response to your failings or your successes shouldn't define what you take from it. That again is another, introspectively and retrospectively, you can look at that, and that will reveal to you what your sense of self is all about, what your self-worth, your self-esteem is about, which brings up a very important point. And that is that your self-worth, your self-esteem is not something that is a narrative or a dialogue that goes on in your mind about what you think of yourself. It's not about affirmations and validations that you repeat to yourself in the mirror or that you journal about. No. All of that is still a projection of what you think others think of you. Think I'm wrong? Dig deeper into it and see where it comes from. When you tell yourself something that is supposed to make you feel better, it's because you're trying to convince yourself that you're not what you think others think of you. That's a distraction. It's a severe distraction that causes a lot of problems, especially emotional hang-ups, that you then make others responsible for tiptoeing around or compensating for or making you feel better about. So your self-worth is a state of being. And the only time you'll realize your state of being is when you reflect on how you handled something and you see whether you're okay with the way you handled it or not. Are you happy that it went that way? Do you believe that how you handled it was true to your value system? Are you going to keep yourself honest about it? And if you don't like the way you handled it, if you see that you might have lost your composure or you treated someone unkindly or something or the other, if that doesn't resonate with who you want to be, you then course correct. You learn from that. You understand why it is that you lost yourself to it. What were the stresses? What else was going on in your life at the time? What was it that you were incorrectly assuming about the situation, etc. So that the next time you encounter that situation, your mindfulness improves. And if your mindfulness improves, that means that you are more focused on what's happening in the moment rather than projecting your past experiences on that moment because you're afraid of what the future outcome is going to be. And that in a nutshell is anxiety. Anxiety is the fear of something going wrong again. Because you can't fear something you haven't experienced before. You'll only know whether you're out of control or not. And if you're out of control and you need control for different reasons other than needing power, then you'll have fear. So fear is about whether or not you believe you will be able to handle the outcome that is potentially going to arise from that, whether it's going to be a pleasant or unpleasant outcome, whether it's going to be harmful or beneficial, and how you believe you are capable of navigating that space. That is where the anxiety or the confidence comes from. So confidence is about your ability to be proficient, your ability to contend with and navigate and accomplish things. That's confidence. Confidence is not who you are, it's what you're capable of. And that's where most people go wrong. They focus on confidence and they think that's self-worth. Self-worth is usually reflected when things don't go your way, especially if it doesn't go your way due to something that was unfair or unjust. Then what emotion that provokes within you and how you deal with it and how you bring yourself to bear on that response, that's a reflection of your self-worth. So self-worth is your innate belief about whether who you are is worthy, capable, and competent and valued, etc. And like I said, or I might not have said it in this episode, but I mentioned it before, is that we get our sense of self from our parents. Whether you like it or not, that is the most important relationship you will ever have. So if you don't understand what you take from those relationships, and notice I said take, not what they do to you, what you take from it. If you don't realize and don't own what you've taken from that relationship, you will be looking at yourself through those eyes for a very long time to come. And that's what causes most of the emotional hang-ups that we have in life, is that we still seeing ourselves through the eyes of people that we thought treated us as if we were nothing. They treated us as if who we were didn't matter, as if we were a burden or we were a curse in their life and things like that. Meanwhile, we don't realize that that's their projection of their bitterness about their life on us. And that's why you've got to see the human in others. You've got to see what they are grappling with that causes them to deal with you in the way they are dealing with you. And accompanied with that, or coupled with that, is understanding what impact you have on them. So if you are significant to someone and they invest a lot of emotional capital into that relationship with you, and you treat them as if they're just another acquaintance, you're going to hurt them because you don't realize what impact you have on them. And that's why it becomes somewhat complicated and sensitive to strike a balance, is that if you don't understand what is your impact that you have and you don't own that, you don't have to surrender to whatever it is that they expect from you, but in understanding what they expect from you and then responding in a way that reflects your value system, that's that's what will determine whether or not that is escalated and harsh and harmful, or whether you deal with it in a way that creates understanding. Might not be a pleasant outcome, might not be the outcome that they wanted, but at least you don't have to attack them in the process. Because that's what fear does. Fear causes us to be defensive. And the defensiveness, that anxiety which is coupled with fear, anxiety is just a very complex fear. That's all it is. And when we act from a place of fear, we then become harsh and abrasive and defensive and brutal. And then we feel justified in it because we focused on how they made us feel or how we felt about that. That's why you must understand. That's not owning it. That's not owning your contribution to your life. That's giving up your agency, saying that because of that, it was okay for me to do that. It might be understandable for you to have done that or behaved in a certain way. It doesn't make it okay. So understanding and then course correcting is very different from understanding and abdicating your accountability because, see, you can understand why I did it, so you can't hold me accountable for that. No, if you realize that you caused harm, regardless of the circumstances, if you hold yourself to a higher standard, then you must be willing to engage towards contributing to alleviating the consequences of the harm that you caused. Not just apologize and walk away, leaving someone else to deal with the damage that you caused because you just didn't mean it. That's what causes problems in most relationships. That's what causes problems in society. Everyone is in such a deeply ingrained victim headspace that they expect everyone else to make space for them and everyone else to tolerate and compensate for what it is that they're dealing with. We've all got our struggles. Every single one of us. From the youngest child to the oldest adult. It never stops. That's what life is about. But it's because we can overcome and we can enjoy the sweetness of overcoming. That's what makes life worth it. So don't expect life not to throw curveballs at you. Don't expect to get to a point where you're healed. Healing is understanding why. Once you understand why someone else couldn't show up for you the way that you had hoped they would, and you don't turn it into a I wasn't good enough kind of conversation, automatically you can make peace with it, and you can see them for who they were without hating them and without feeling bitter about it, because you recognize that they're human. At their point in time, their journey just wasn't gelling with your journey. It just wasn't mutually beneficial. So self-worth is the value you place on yourself based on what you think others think of you. And if you're going to lose yourself to what others think of you, you're never ever going to claim that and say, well, okay, if they think that of me, is it true or not? Yes, it is true. Okay, I want to do something about that because that's not who I want to be. That's what I mean when I say you reflect retrospectively, you look at your conduct, you look at the feedback you get, and then you choose what you want to do about it. Do you accept that they're going to experience it that way because you're not willing to budge on that principle? Then you accept that, and you accept the consequences that has on those relationships. So is there a point in all of this? I hope there is. I hope the point is that we need to claim our sense of self, and we need to stop the separation that we create within ourselves. There's no inner child. You are who you are. You are the sum total. In this very moment, you are the sum total of your life's experiences. And depending on what you're faced with in that moment, what you're encountering, what you're trying to achieve, depending on that, whatever previous experiences resonate with that current moment, that's what will determine how it is that you feel about it and how you're going to show up for it and how you're going to feel emotionally prepared to deal with it. That's how life works. Life is about emotional themes. That's why if someone makes you feel a certain way in your personal space, and someone in your professional space treats you in a way that makes you feel the same way, you'll take offense. Not because of what they did, but because of how you feel about what they did. And that's how you become a slave to society. You become a slave to everyone else's behavior because you need people to show up a certain way. You need people to be a certain way and all of those sorts of things. And if the consequences of you speaking your truth, so to speak, is too much for you to want to contemplate dealing with, or it's going to be detrimental to what you need practically to pay your bills at the end of the month and things like that, it's going to start adding stress to your life, and you're going to become passive aggressive, you're going to become avoidant, and all of these other wonderful terms that we come up with. And all it is that you're avoiding consequence because you need something that you otherwise wouldn't be able to achieve if you had to speak your truth. And that's how we lose the peace in our life. We lose contentment as well. It's got nothing to do with chemical imbalances. It's got nothing to do with illnesses, mental illnesses or disorders or anything of that sort. It's simply very complex, deeply seated experiences in life that have grown to define us. So coming back to something I said earlier, just to emphasize how important that is, if we don't realize what others get from us, what security they might feel around us, or what comfort they might feel, or assurance they might feel, or how they might feel enamored or confident because of our support, because that's the impact we have in their life. If we don't realize that, we will treat them dismissively, or we will withdraw from that space without understanding because we're convinced that we don't have that impact, or they don't care, or we're not important. And that then convinces them that we don't care. And that's why what you take is more important than what you are offering or what someone is doing. Because what I take from my relationship with my parents is significantly different to what it is that drove them to raise me the way they did. Very different. That's why you can get one person that grows up in an abusive environment and they decide to be better than that, and you get another person that grows up in an abusive environment, similar environment, and they decide they're going to rage at the world because of it. It's what you take from the environment, not what someone gives. If someone gives you a whole lot of scrap metal, you think they're giving you junk, you're going to feel insulted. But if someone gives you a whole lot of scrap metal and you see opportunity to be able to recycle or reshape or create sculpture out of it, very different experience. Reclaim your agency. Reclaim your self-worth so that you don't outsource it to your social structures around you and to your partner and to your relationships and all of that. Reclaim it. Take ownership of it. Own who you are and own the journey you have to travel to discover why you are who you are. Because that's where healing lies. Healing lies in understanding why you are the way you are, why you feel the way you do about certain things, why certain things are so triggering and overwhelming for you. And if you don't have an opportunity to be able to introspect or reflect or get answers about how you might have ended up at that point, the next best thing you can do is be very mindful about, okay, I don't like the way I feel about this. I need to look at it more mindfully so that I can understand why it is that I don't need to be defensive about it, or I don't need to be anxious about whether or not I can handle the outcome. You know what's the best way to overcome anxiety? Is look at your past experiences, look at the evidence of your life, and see how many opportunities or how many incidents occurred where before the incident you didn't see a curveball that was going to come. You didn't see a complexity that was going to arise, a complication. But yet, in the moment, you navigated it and you overcame it and you emerged more wise or wiser and more confident because of it. But if you're not looking at it from that perspective, if you're looking at it from the perspective of something always goes wrong, you're not going to learn from that. You're not going to grow from it. You're not going to become more resilient, more adaptable because of it. You're going to be tensed up about the fact that something's going to go wrong. Because, nothing good ever happens for me. Whatever's important to me never goes my way, and all of that sort of thing. You create self-fulfilling prophecies like that because you convince yourself that the universe is just not kind to you, or the universe is not getting your signals. This thinking about, convey your desires and your wishes and your wants and your intentions to the universe, and the universe is conspiring to make it happen for you. No. That's no different to people who think that the world revolves around them. It doesn't. Your life is what you do with it. It's what you create in your life. It's what you take from the experiences and the relationships that you've had, and how you bring that to bear on rising above it, on doing something constructive with it, informing your understanding and your wisdom about how life works. That's the best you can do. Anything less than that is a distraction. You don't need tools, you don't need exercises, you don't need affirmations, you don't need validation to be a decent human, to be a fulfilled human. You just need to be human. I'm Zaidi Ismail. I hope that was of value, and I look forward to your thoughts on this. Take care.